Okay, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to read the preface and foreword of the Diaries of Sir Ernest Mason SATOW, 1889 to 1895, Uruguay and Morocco. The preface is very short, and then I will read the foreword by Professor T.G. Otte. Okay, here we go with the preface. The project of making the important and valuable diaries and letters of Sir Ernest SATOW, PC, GCMG, deposited by the terms of his will after his death in the Public Record Office, now the National Archives of the UK, more easily available in book form to scholars, students, and the general reading public, began with the diaries and letters of Sir Ernest Mason SATOW, 1843 to 1929, a scholar diplomat in East Asia, Edwin Mellon Press, 1998. It has since become a time-consuming but most absorbing, enjoyable and rewarding life work. This volume is the 7th in the series, which is now unbroken from the start of SATOW's diary, journal as he called it on the first page, in 1861, until the early years of his retirement in 1911. Further volumes will follow to complete the series, which ends on the 31st of December, 1926. And in fact, I have now completed the series. At least this 31st of December, 1926 is the last known diary entry, and nothing after that is deposited at Kew, though SATOW lived until 1929. Did he write more and then decide not to include it in his papers? We may never know. I am most grateful to Dr. Thomas Otte of the University of East Anglia for his expert and succinct foreword. All errors are mine. Ian Ruxton, Kyushu Institute of Technology, October 2017. Foreword, T.G. Otte. Sir Ernest SATOW is principally remembered today as the foremost Orientalist in the late Victorian diplomatic service and as a practitioner turned scholar of modern diplomacy. His own professional career, however, was by no means confined to East Asia, but also encompassed the Western Hemisphere and the geopolitical fringes of Europe. It took him to Latin America and North Africa, 2 mid-career postings, which are covered in this volume of his diaries, ably produced once more by Ian Ruxton. Neither post was of the first order. British interests in Uruguay and Morocco were subsidiary to larger strategic considerations, but nor were they negligible. Along the River Plate, Britain's interests were exclusively financial and commercial. Much of the economic life of Argentina and Uruguay was dominated by British banking and trading houses. The Fray Bentos corned beef manufacturing and packing plant played a significant role in the economy of Uruguay. The railways in both countries, meanwhile, were mostly British built and run, and the companies that operated them were often implicated in the corrupt practices of the political elites in Montevideo and Buenos Aires. Unsurprisingly, much of SATOW's official work was taken up with commercial matters, and yet, repeated and not infrequently, heated haggling over vast sums of money owed by the Uruguayan government to railway companies notwithstanding, SATOW still managed to part from the ministers as good friends. Latin America was widely regarded at the time as a diplomat's graveyard, and it testified to SATOW's professional nous that his career was not buried there too. SATOW's spell at Montevideo was not without political interest, however. He had a ringside seat during the Revolución de Parque in neighboring Argentina and the Rio Grandense Revolution, which plunged southern Brazil into a civil war. In Uruguay, meanwhile, he witnessed the infighting and jockeying for positions as the authoritarian military regime gradually gave way to civilians in 1890. At Tangier and Fez, the 2 principal places in Morocco, SATOW encountered rather different challenges. The slow decline of the Moorish kingdom made the future of the country a pressing matter of great power politics. Given the importance of the Mediterranean sea lines of communication for Britain's imperial power, it was a problem that the government in London could not ignore. Much of Morocco had no intrinsic strategic value for Britain as such, Not so, however, the coastline opposite Gibraltar, which guarded the western entrance to the Mediterranean, and which had to be kept out of the hands of another European power. SATOW was therefore preoccupied with keeping in check French ambitions on it. There was also the risk of Franco-Spanish or Italo-Spanish squabbles over all or parts of Morocco, which needed to be contained. At the same time, he sought to encourage the country's rulers to whom he was accredited, Sultans Hassan I and, after 1894, Abdel Aziz, to embark on a program of internal reforms to strengthen his regime against the clandestine and covetous maneuvers of France. SATOW made little progress in this regard. Indeed, he felt frustrated by Moorish procrastination, and that despite the support of such colourful characters as the redoubtable Caid Maclean, the Anglo-Levantine Drummond Hay dynasty, and the mercurial, indeed infamous, correspondent of the Times newspaper, Walter Harris. After 6 years outside East Asia, SATOW returned to the region in 1895, this time as Minister Plenipotentiary to Japan. In many respects, he was destined for that post. Without his previous excursions to the River Plate and his North African sojourn, however, this next move in his career might well not have happened. And that's the end of Thomas Otte's foreword, thanking him very much for that, and you for listening and watching. Goodbye for now.